This information is not intended as legal, health, or nutritional advice. It is provided for informational purposes only. The Natural Health Product Protection Association does not endorse or accept responsibility for statements, views, or opinions presented by guests or attendees. Since 2008, NHPPA has been dedicated to protecting the natural health industry. Our recent campaigning began in June of 2023, and since then, our achievements have been nothing short of remarkable, and it's all thanks to our community. We kicked things off with a national campaign to educate the country, including an in-depth discussion paper written by Sean Buckley, a live legal review, and industry Zoom calls to educate the nation about the risks facing natural health products. This was followed by a campaign to pressure our MPs, where we filled their desks with letters and postcards to educate them and request their support. This campaign led the Standing Committee on Health to hold 2 meetings to discuss Health Canada's proposed changes to our natural health product regulations, garnered mainstream media attention, and contributed to the official opposition incorporating the protection of natural health products into their party platform. Perhaps most exciting, Sean Buckley drafted a private member's bill to repeal sections 500 to 504 of Bill C-47. After consultation with Mr. Buckley, MP Blaine Calkins brought a private member's bill for the same purpose to the House of Commons on December 5th. We are collecting signatures in support of this bill, now called Bill C-368, so if you haven't signed yet, you can find the link on our website. Staying on the topic of petitions, in the fall of 2023, we collected 15,000 new signatures in support of the Charter of Health Freedom, bringing us that much closer to our goal of 250,000. What we're doing is working. We're making a difference, and all of our achievements are credited to your involvement, so we thank you for being part of our community and taking action. Help us help you. If NHPPA's work to protect your natural health product and practice freedom is important to you, please make a one-time or monthly donation by visiting nhppa.org/donate.
Well, I'd like to welcome everyone who's joining us in person and also those that are going to be watching the replay later. It's a pleasure to have you participating. We, are doing all we can to try and bring sanity to what's going on and to protect your access to natural health products. But the reality is it's not us, it's you that gets things done. We rely on you taking action. We rely on you supporting us. And so I'd like to personally thank all of you who are donating and helping us to do what we need to do. This doesn't happen in a vacuum. So, we really need your support. And it has truly been an interesting day, as we'll share with you a little later. Health Canada had almost a day-long meeting as they also then re-gazetted their cost recovery initiative that we had been predicting they were going to go ahead with despite all the opposition. So they know politically this is not popular at all. And we predicted that, well, they'll introduce it and just add a reduced amount and then slowly phase it up. And as we'll share with you in a little bit, that's exactly what's happening. And we'll share with you the ramifications about that. So it's been a really, really interesting day for us. And we've had a lot to digest. But I just wanted to start by welcoming you. And Veronica, then I think I'll turn it over to you for a moment.
Sure. Thank you, Sean. All right. Right off the bat, everyone, I echo Sean's sentiments. Thank you for being here. Those of you who are here live, or if you're watching on the replay. The first thing that we'll share is just a bit of an update to all of our campaigns and our actions over the last month or so. Just remind you some of the things that we have going on, how you can get involved, and some of the accomplishments that we've had. And then we'll dig into some of those things that are very specific to what occurred today in Health Canada. So I do have a presentation. I will pull that up quickly. Give me just a moment to share my screen. All right, I think you should be seeing things here. Okay, so I just wanted to start with a brief overview again of the key issues from our perspective. So we are leading nationwide campaigns to stop the self-care framework, and that's a piece that there's still some confusion about. And the self-care framework implementation has been very long, very drawn out. And there's some questions whether we as Canadians need to be worried about that or not. From NHPPA's perspective, yes, we do need to be worried about that. And we've got some reasons on the screen here. Specifically, Health Canada is implementing stricter regulations that will significantly impact consumer choice and restrict access to natural health products and supplements. We've got here Health Canada is introducing new fees. So that's what Sean was talking about, the cost recovery meeting that took place earlier today. So we'll go into that a little bit more. But those fees are going to lead to significant price hikes for those of us who are using natural health products. And it's also going to force a lot of small and medium-sized natural health products out of business. We're also looking at increased Health Canada censorship under the self-care framework, and it will prevent the truthful advertising of natural health products, being able to share information about what they do, what they're useful for, both by manufacturers and by natural health food stores. And then lastly, here in the little blue square, huge new fines will cripple and destroy the natural health community. With Bill C-47 that came into effect in June of last year, the maximum fines that the industry now faces for violating the laws on NHPs, such as selling a product with improper labeling or advertising outside of the approved label claims. It used to be $5,000 for an offense. Now it is $5 million per day for an offense. So just wanted to give that quick overview so we're all on the same page again, what exactly is facing our industry. And then I also wanted to share a little bit about NHPPA's track record. So we have been around since 2008 and dedicated specifically to protecting Canadians' access to natural health products. In 2008, NHPPA was essential in the defeat of Bill C-51, which contained most of the penalties and powers that Health Canada is again proposing to apply to natural health products. And then we also have a note here that we predicted this a decade in advance. So thanks to Sean's legal analysis, his expertise in the realm of regulating natural health products, when Bill C-17 came about in 2013, NHPPA sounded the alarm at that point that these regulatory changes would leave the natural health product industry vulnerable in the future. And that is exactly what is occurring now. So I still field some emails and things in our general inbox and, questions and social media comments and things that maybe this isn't as big of a problem what we're facing right now as we think it is, as NHPPA being a little bit alarmist. And that's, there were rumblings about that in 2008, the same in 2013, the same in 2017 when the self-care framework was released. And so we just really want to emphasize that NHPPA saw these things coming. It is important, it is urgent, and there is a reason for all of us to stand up and take action. So I also wanted to share a little bit about our 5 campaign goals, just remind everyone the things that we're working on. So we've got them listed here. We're working to repeal sections 500 to 504 of Bill C-47. A little later in the evening tonight, we will go through specifically some actions that we're taking on that front and some updates there. We're working to stop cost recovery on the natural health industry. That's the Health Canada meeting that occurred today. We'll speak about that as well. We're working to stop the self-care framework in its entirety. We would like to enact the Charter of Health Freedom. We'll give you a bit of an update on that petition later as well, and also reclassify natural health products as food and not drugs. So now that we have that, just a bit of general information, make sure we all have that framing in our minds about the things that we're working on and why this is important. I'll share a bit about last month's achievements. I can give you a little sneak peek to what March will look like as well. I kind of looked at the numbers to date as well, so we can go through that also. So campaigns that we have active right now, our first campaign is the Pressure Your MP campaign. That includes letters, postcards, calls, and in-person visits. We have our private members bill C368 campaigning. We have an e-petition and an electronic MP letter campaign related to that action specifically. And Bill C368, just as a reminder for anyone who doesn't know, sections 500 to 504 of Bill C47, those are the sections that apply the $5 million per day fines to natural health product companies. And Bill C368 is looking to repeal those sections. And then our final active campaign right now is the Charter of Health Freedom petition. We have a goal to reach 250,000 signatures on that petition. It is currently the third largest paper petition pending delivery to Parliament in Canadian history. So lots of support for that as well. And so how this shook out in February, we have approximately 30,000 postcards per week shipping out across the country. And that brings us to a total of about 800,000 as of the end of February. I'm sure we'll get close to 900,000 by the end of March. So lots and lots of postcards going out. We don't have an exact way to track how many of those are reaching members of Parliament, but we know it is a lot. We see them on social media doing their Instagram lives and things like that with the giant stacks on top of their desk. When we speak to the members of Parliament, they tell us things like they have a whole separate closet in their office where they're storing these pieces of communication because they're receiving so many. So thank you to all of you who are sending those in and making your voices heard on that matter. We have, with respect to the private members bill campaign, that MP letter, the electronic letters being sent, 77,423 letters were sent out during the month of February, which brought us to a total of 209,618 letters. That, again, those are the electronic ones that we can track. We know that there are paper, physical letters going out as well that we're encouraging you to send. We do provide the form letters on our website, so you can do that as well. But the ones that we can track, we were up over 200,000 at the end of February, and we are pushing 300,000 letters sent through that. So please continue that. We have multiple letters available through that electronic system. There's 4 letters, so it will rotate through. So you're welcome to send through that system multiple times. It doesn't have to be just once. You can get various different messages off to your MP and those other key targeted bureaucrats and MPs that it sends to as well. Also, with respect to the private members bill, we have our e-petition. During the month of February, we collected 2,311 signatures for that, bringing us just over 12,000 signatures in total. When I checked this morning, we were at about 14,300. So we may hit 15,000 by the end of March. So lots of good movement there as well. And that's helping to demonstrate to members of Parliament that this is an issue that matters to Canadians. So thank you for those of you who have signed that. And again, you're welcome, forward that on to your family, your friends, your colleagues, other people who would like to maintain their access to natural health products. Those signatures do make a difference. And then lastly, relating to our Charter of Health Freedom petition, we collected 1,200 signatures during the month of February. And again, those are physical paper signatures on the petition. So that brought us to 127,323 signatures in support of the Charter of Health Freedom. Again, our goal is 250,000. So we almost need to double that. So we've got some work to do. So again, for all of you who are listening, if you would like to head over to the website, print off a petition page, you're also encouraged to collect signatures on that paper petition as well. So that's our update for February and a little sneak preview with some of those numbers that we can see for March. I'll stop sharing here. Sean, is there anything that you want to add to what I've shared there? Oh, you muted yourself.
I was just testing to see how everyone's lip reading is. You have to excuse the sun. It's just wonderful and coming in, and I see my colors now off, but that's fine. Veronica had already touched on, as she's going through all of these achievements, you don't have to just send one letter, because the whole goal is to flood the MPs and to have constant pressure, not just the MPs on Health Canada, also some of their officials. And, we may add some more pressure points there. And our understanding is they are feeling pressured. So, I mean, they're knowing that the MPs are being pressured and they're feeling pressure. But we had been clear at the very beginning of this campaign. We view this as going to be a long campaign because this is entrenched. In my opinion, this isn't even coming from Canada. This is a transnational initiative. And for those of you who read our discussion paper on the origin of the self-care framework, I mean, if you've been in the industry, there was just tremendous consumer and industry participation with the Standing Committee of Health to get to the point where we then ended up negotiating natural health product regulations. And it takes us, like 12 to 15 years for all of us to adjust and get compliant with these regulations. Health Canada had to learn, let alone the industry. How do we properly do this? And as soon as we finished, as soon as it was working, 4 bureaucrats, and they're all listed by name in our discussion paper, 4 bureaucrats, and we know this from access to information requests, go to the Minister of Health, and none of them have expertise in the management of natural health products. And they basically say, hey, here's this self-care framework, and the minister signs off on it. And they've been clear this is non-negotiable. So right when they first introduced it in 2017 and toured the land, this is just being imposed on us. And in my opinion, it's being imposed on us from outside. And so when you're being threatened so significantly, and you're being told there's no negotiation, there's no quarter to be given, you know that you're in for a tough fight. And so please continue to write letters. If you've sent 10 postcards, send 10 more. Like just because it might be the same one in a health food store, don't worry, just keep sending them. The point is, like I heard one MP is now like basically a closet is dedicated to these postcards, and they feel obligated not to throw them out. I think they're waiting to see how many they get in total. So keep up the pressure. And with that Charter of Health Freedom paper petition, we're the 3rd largest in Canadian history. So what you have to do is just print off the form. We have a PDF form, and just get everyone to sign it and mail it into us. So it's a little more onerous for us being a paper petition, but it's much more meaningful. And then Veronica said, we've got it set up so it's easy for you to send an e-letter, but go to our website and print a letter off, or better yet, write your own letter. Doesn't have to be long, send it in. So let's talk about what happened today with cost recovery. And the term cost recovery confuses some people, and I understand that. But it's just the term that Health Canada uses to mean that, well, they're spending money administrating, the Food and Drug Act and natural health product regulations, and they want to recover some of their costs. And this idea of cost recovery came in under the Mulroney government back in the mid-90s in all areas. It's been an absolute train wreck in the area of health, because what we have now is regulatory capture, where Health Canada, most of their budget, is paid for by the fees that the big pharmaceutical companies pay. They're not seeking large sums from the natural health product industry. They were first seeking about 100 million a year, and now they're saying, oh, well, we'll be down to about 50 million a year. But it's too much for us to bear because we're so small, and we don't have any intellectual property rights. We can't charge high fees to recover our costs, and natural health products aren't paid for by government health plans. I mean, in Alberta, I heard the figure that Alberta Health Services gets $28 billion a year. $28 billion a year. And a significant amount of that goes to pay for pharmaceutical drugs. So to pretend that we should be paying the same fees as them is quite interesting. So there's a set of regulations that imposes fees for things like, if you want to manufacture a drug, you have to get a site license. If you want to license a drug, you go through a licensing process, and they want us to pay Health Canada's actual costs of this. And what happened today so to make a regulation, you publish it in the government newspaper called the Gazette. You have to wait for there to be comments, and then you publish it a second time, and it can become law. So they published it the first time last year, and they got comments and they've got pressure outside of, comments that Canadians think this is a very bad idea. Like, you're not going to find a single MP that believes that their constituents want this, and yet it's going ahead. So now they're saying, well, we're reducing the amounts. And I said that they would do that. And I said that on some of these calls. We can go back and watch these calls. I said they're going to come down with reduced fees. And the psychology there is you introduce, the same fees as the chemical drugs. If you go to the fee for drug regulations, and it's in our discussion paper, I mean, basically the fees they were proposing were the same. But I said, that's how you start. You start with basically the full fees. And then you come back after consultation period and you suggest lesser fees so that the industry will agree, oh, I can survive this. But then they'll just keep bumping them up. And they said that's exactly what we're going to do. So we're going to come in with lower fees, and then we're going to slowly bump them up. Oh, don't worry, they won't completely be harmonized after a 7-year period, but we know that they will. And what's scary is this is all part of this self-care framework that, again, they came out with in 2017. So for 7 years, they've been telling us that they're going to do this. They've had a timetable in place, and their first timetables we should already be fully implemented. They have not shown anyone a draft of the proposed regulations. Now, I used to work in government. I promise you they had a draft before they publicly announced what they wanted to do and what their end goals were. It doesn't mean the draft wouldn't change, but they knew exactly what they want to do, and they will not share the draft with us. They just tell us that they want full harmonization with the chemical drug model for over-the-counter drugs. And we all know it's going to be a train wreck. So here they're telling, but this is just a piece of it. So they've always said getting fees from the natural health product industry is a part of the self-care framework, because if we're going to have full harmonization, then natural health product companies should pay the same fees as chemical drug companies that have intellectual property rights and can charge super high prices if they get an approval, and we can't. And we pay sales tax, GST and PST, our consumers do, and they don't on pharmaceutical drugs. So there's already cost recovery. But what's frustrating is they're saying, well, surely you can survive these costs. But without giving us the regulatory structure, we don't know how expensive this is going to be for a company. So just imagine you're running a company, you have a set of regulations called the natural health product regulations, and there's a cost for you. You'll have, at least one full-time employee if you're a small company. If you're a bigger company, you'll have a whole team just to help you comply with that. Or you'll be using outside companies to get you through the licensing process. But you'll have people within who, make sure you've got your good manufacturing practices, all of this. That's why our products are about 3 to 4 times more expensive than the same products in the United States, because of the cost that our current regulations put on us. And when the prices went up, the number of Canadians that could buy the products went down. So we're already in a situation where economically disadvantaged Canadians, they don't have the freedom of choice that the rest of us that are not in that situation have. So already we're in trouble. But if you're going to double or triple the cost to the manufacturer to comply with the regulations, we should know about that when we're talking about you adding fees on, because are we going to survive at all once we're totally in this self-care framework? Now the short answer is, and I'm going to just give you some Sherry stats shared by some industry members today. But the short answer is no, we're not going to survive. The industry is not going to survive. And that's the end goal. Like, it's so clear when you look at the self-care framework and you understand that there's so many parts of it that just, this part alone, for example, like the loss of using professional use products, well, that's going to decimate our practitioners. And it's going to decimate whole wings of the industry. This cost recovery, there were industry people speaking up today at the meeting saying, even with your reduced fees, and remember, they're going to be tiered up and up and up and up. Even with these reduced ones you're suggesting, some manufacturers are saying we'll drop 40% to 90% of the product lines we currently have in Canada. Can I say that again? 40% to 90% just on this initiative alone. And that's why I was talking about, but wait, this is only part of the costs. What's going to happen then when you have that increased regulatory burden with full harmonization? We're done. Like these two things alone, we're done. Let alone, we're going to lose the right to use traditional use evidence to get through the licensing that in itself. Like there's so many parts of the self-care framework that just shout from the rooftops. The end goal is to get rid of these products. So it's been a challenging day for those that participated in the meeting, and those that understand that Health Canada is proceeding ahead at all costs. And they were clear, we are going ahead with this self-care framework. We're going to implement the whole thing, and we're not going to tell you what the whole thing looks like after 7 years. So yeah, it's I could use some choice adjectives, but I'm going to refrain. So, Veronica, I'll switch it back over to you. I know that there's likely going to be some questions later, but you wanted to talk about Bill C-368 and share with us some materials on that.
Before we do that, I just want to make sure that for everyone who's listening live and those who might be watching on the replay, that you're really understanding what Sean is describing, that these new fees, they've introduced that 50% of what they previously suggested. And companies are still saying that will be causing them to pull 40 to 90% of their product line. And there were manufacturers at the table at that meeting today saying we'll be forced to leave Canada altogether, even with these fees. There's no business sense in us remaining in this industry if we're paying these fees. So Health Canada is hearing from industry that this is absolutely going to crush their businesses. They will be taking product off the market. They were asked the question by Sean and by others, if there has been a balanced risk analysis with regard to those fees, what is the effect going to be on health? And how would that affect Canada from the fiscal standpoint as well, if we're spending more on other types of healthcare? And they have not done that risk analysis, and they openly admit that that's not been done. And Natalie Page, the Director General there at the NNHPD, she specifically said at the end of the meeting, we're not going lower than these proposed fees. So in their mind, this is a done deal. They put it in the Gazette too. It will be open for a 30-day comment period. So we'll likely be encouraging folks to write in and give comment on this. But it's when Sean says it was a difficult day, it was difficult to sit there for the full day and listen to the Health Canada talking points when you basically have the industry there pleading on behalf of Canadians' right to access these products and their health, and not really seeming to get anywhere. So
can I fill in before you go, because
course.
you raised the interesting point about a balanced risk analysis. So they're basically telling us they're under fiscal pressure. Like, we need to get money from you. And so, but then when they're asked, well, wait a second, so you're telling us this, you're not sharing the regulations with us so that we can actually all have a reasonable idea what the eventual costing is going to be. But it's clear we're going to lose products. And it's clear that products we don't lose, the price is going to go up so fewer Canadians can access them. These are health products. So there's going to be health consequences when health products that people are relying on disappear. Have you done an analysis on the impact of taking treatments away from Canadians that they're currently using to manage health conditions? Because if the natural ones go away, then they have to transition into the pharmaceuticals with a higher risk profile. And now that's getting paid for by government. So here government's saying, I need a measly 50 million right now. Oh yeah, we're going to bump it up over 7 years, but I need 50 million from you because we're in crisis. Well, surely it's going to cost way more than that to the government in then having to, because we pay for natural health products ourselves, the consumers, but government pays for a lot of the chemical pharmaceuticals. And then there's going to be worse health outcomes. And who's going to pay for that? So, and they're just blind to health outcomes. And I'm just stressing this because it's important for you to understand this has nothing to do with health. The whole regulation of natural health products has nothing to do with health, although they use health for their public messaging. So, and I've never seen Health Canada do balanced risk analysis. We always hear risk, risk, risk. And if you're looking for risk, you'll find risk. But if we're actually asking, well, wait a second, is increasing regulations that we know will take products off the market? If we want to know, is this a good idea for health outcomes? We have to appreciate the benefits and then the health costs of taking them off. So that's what Veronica was talking about.
Thank you. So for everyone on this call, I'm going to put in the chat the link to subscribe to our newsletter. Over the next month for this consultation period, we're likely to share some more information as we go. So if you're not already subscribed, make sure that you do that. And as I'll keep saying, again, share this with other people that you know who would like to continue accessing natural health products. So you can welcome them to subscribe as well if it's appropriate. So we'll move into a little better news. We can move and talk about Bill C-368. This is our private members bill to repeal those sections of Bill C-47 that apply the $5 million per day fines to the industry. I'm going to share another video, so give me just one moment while I pull that up. All right, here we go. And this should just give a bit of an overview, and then we'll talk about it in more detail.
This vote will influence the future of the Canadian natural health industry, including your ability to access natural health products. And we only have a few short months to gain the support of as many MPs as possible before the vote occurs. Let us explain why and how your involvement is crucial in determining the outcome of this vote. In late April, a private member's bill called Bill C-368 is planned to be presented in the House of Commons for its second reading. And on this day, members of Parliament will have the opportunity to discuss the bill for 1 hour. Then as early as May or as late as September, they will discuss the bill for another 1 hour period and then vote on whether or not they agree that this bill should continue in the official process. If Bill C-368 is new to you, here's what you need to know. The purpose of this bill is to repeal sections 500 to 504 of our annual budget bill called Bill C-47, which was passed in June of 2023, and applies sweeping Health Canada fees, fines, and powers that are not appropriate for or survivable by the natural health industry. With time running out, it's up to us to make sure our MPs understand the merit behind Bill C-368 and that you, as their constituent, expect them to represent your interests by casting a positive vote at the end of second reading. NHPPA has made it extremely easy for you to get involved. We ask that you head to the link provided and fill out your information to automatically send an electronic letter to your local MP, the Prime Minister, the Minister of Health, and all 12 members of the Standing Committee on Health. To be even more effective, we ask that you also print the letter and physically mail it to your local MP because receiving piles of paper on their desk sends a very strong message. You can even draft your own letter if you have more to add on the topic. We always encourage sharing personal stories with MPs about the benefits you've received from natural health products. Let's put pressure on our MPs in the short time we have before Bill C-368 goes to vote, so start sending your letters now.
So you should also know, and Veronica, can you put the link up to in the chat? MP Blaine Calkins, the MP that introduced Bill C-368, attended a podcast with me, and he explained really thoroughly, well, what is the process to get a bill through Parliament? And, spoke about putting pressure on MPs. And I think you'll find it really educational, and also talking about this bill, just so you can get a little more information about it. And, so if you have a Conservative MP, we're pretty confident they're already going to vote for this bill. But we don't know about the Bloc Québécois. We don't know about the NDP. We've heard some positive things. And we don't know about Liberals. Like with the private members bill, unless you're a cabinet member, which is, there's only a handful of cabinet members. But if you're not in the cabinet, in the government party, you're usually allowed to vote as you want on a private members bill, and unless the party whip's telling you not to. So we really need to put pressure on the Liberals, so that the party will allow those MPs that are not in cabinet to vote as they want. And we also need pressure on the bloc, and we're weak in Quebec. So if you know people in Quebec, get them involved, and do what you can to raise awareness in Quebec. And another thing that would be very helpful for us is start leveraging our social media. So if you have social media accounts, follow us and make sure that you repost. So if I was talking about X, but I always want to call it Twitter, like retweet, right? Because that makes a huge difference. And it's something that every one of us can do. Just, repost the things that are being posted, because it makes a difference in getting the word out. So, but this is super important. This is already law. This is, let's say you're a natural health product manufacturer or a healthcare practitioner. So let's say you're a naturopathic doctor. The maximum fine for you, like there's jail, if you hurt somebody or do something really stupid or negligent, aside from the criminal code, under the Food and Drug Act, you can go to jail. But usually, if it's just a regulatory violation, you're looking at a maximum $5,000 fine. And, how much of a fine you would get would depend on the seriousness, with the court understanding 5,000, like that's a real bad one. Well, it went from 5,000 per offense to $5 million for every day you're in violation. Now, I don't know a naturopathic doctor that can withstand such large fines. And I mean, for regulatory, depending on what the violation is, it's not going to be $5 million. But what a court will do is say, okay, the maximum, somebody gets hurt or killed, we're at 5 million. But we're not even talking 5,000. So, oh no, this is a minor one. So I'm only going to fine you 1.5 million. Like when the max is 5 million, the bar is between something like that we shouldn't even be here to 5 million. So the fine structure is such that, companies now can't withstand Health Canada directions or orders or anything now, even if following the directions would lead to, death or bodily harm. And we've been in the situation where following Health Canada's direction has led to death and bodily harm. So, so it's very scary. It's very important that we get momentum for this bill.
So I'm going to add in the chat a link to a recent blog post that we put up that has links to that video that we just showed on screen on all of our platforms. So, if your platform of choice is Facebook, you can click through to the Facebook and share that with your network. If you prefer Twitter or X, as Shauna said, you can click through there, share it with your networks. So this blog post that I put in the chat here is a great way for you to share this with your networks. I'll also put the link one more time for the letter writing campaign that is connected with Bill C-368. Again, we have a limited time. This is going to the second reading. We expect in late April. The date has shifted a little bit depending on parliamentary business, but sometime around the 19th, 20th, somewhere in there, we expect the first hour of debate in the House. And then it could be as soon as May that this is going to vote. So we really need to make sure that we're putting that pressure on our MPs and making sure that they know where we stand on this issue. So we also want to make sure that we leave time for questions tonight. We're already at 7:40 Eastern time here. We'll be wrapping up in about 20 minutes or so. So I do see a few questions already in the Q&A box. If anyone else here has questions that you would like to pose, please do put them in that Q&A box. I've been watching the chat a little bit, but I don't always catch everything there in amongst the other things that I'm looking at. So if you have a question specifically, please put it in that Q&A box to make sure that we can get to it. So Sean, if I could, I will ask the first question. Lucinda sent in a question. It says, if these changes come into effect, could it be changed with the Conservatives in power? Do you want to give a response to that?
Yes, it can. Yes, it can. So the Conservatives, can undo regulations. So assuming that they form the next government, we can't rely on that though. And I appreciate that the Conservatives have said that they're supporting this bill, and I appreciate that the Conservatives are saying that they support our access to natural health products, and I hope that follows through. But we had the same situation when Harper first got elected. He had, as part of his election platform, enacting what was called Bill C-420, which would have moved us into the food category like the United States. And they didn't do that. They came out with Bill C-51. So I'm of the opinion, and I've had MPs that I've had frank discussions with agree with me, that it doesn't matter what party is in power, the Ministry of Health is so powerful and has so much momentum with these initiatives that it's very difficult for any government to go against them. Now, that doesn't mean that they wouldn't repeal this. So the short answer to the question is yes, they can. But I think the onus is on us to just do everything we possibly can.
Very good. I have another question here from Sharon. She put in the Q&A box. It's a little bit of a long one. It contains an excerpt from a letter that she received back from her member of parliament. So I'll read through this here. She says, I would love to hear your view on the communications that are being shared by the MPs. The letter I received shared this, quote, natural remedies have a long history of use in Canada as a low risk and affordable method of promoting well-being. They must remain accessible to all Canadians. At the same time, New Democrats believe that consumers have a right to know that the natural health products they rely on are both safe and appropriately labeled. Currently, NHPs are the only health product line that are unregulated and not being charged regulatory fees by Health Canada. And then she goes on to say, this really sounded like as NHPs are not being charged regulatory fees, the government was looking for another revenue stream. So she's looking forward to your comments on this.
Well, and if I heard that comment correctly also, it's implied there that they're unsafe and need stricter regulations, which is what the self-care framework is all about. And that's what's so frustrating about this is the real mischief's the drug model. So, but this letter likely is, part of form talking points that the NDP has adopted on this issue. And again, pretending that they're risk and they're not addressing the question, well, wait a second, if we regulate them out of existence, first of all, from a democratic perspective, if, we, the people, want access to unsafe natural health products, well, we know they're not, but you're telling us they're unsafe. Well, wait a second, we want that choice. We're telling you clearly, do we not have the right to have access to these things? Even if they aren't, we can go skydiving, we can go scuba diving, we can take chemical pharmaceutical drugs, which, from a risk profile is just astronomical. We can do almost everything we want, but you're telling us we can't access natural health products. And, they don't have to be proven to be safe or effective south of the border, which is why, there's nobody alive in the United States, right? I'm just being facetious. And they weren't regulated here until 2004, and they weren't even regulated in 2004 because it literally took us over 10 years to get probably half of the industry in compliance. So it's really only been a handful of years that we've been regulated. Do you really feel safer now than you did 5 years ago, 10 years ago? Have you felt any difference ever walking into a health food store? You don't feel unsafe at all. So, but they never take into account what is the health cost of removing them. So, I mean, to me, that's just a talking head letter, and, we need to call them on it.
All right, I see another question just came into the chat that I want to make sure that I don't miss. So I'm going to go there next because it is a good question. This person says, this topic is a lot more complex than I knew. Is there a place on the website where each of the issues Sean has outlined today is listed so they could be incorporated into your or our letters and we could add our personalized comments to one or all of the items? Yes, we do have that. Once I pose the next question, I will go and find that on the website and put the link in the chat. But we have a one-page document that you can print off with a list of I believe it's 25 potential talking points that you can include within your letter that talks about all the different ways that these new regulations will impact your access to natural health products, the potential consequences. So you're able to read through those points, think about which ones resonate the most with you, for you, with your life, how you use natural health products, and you're welcome to pull from those resources and use it to write your own letter. So I will go and grab that link. Just watch the chat. I'll put that in there in a moment.
And before you go to the next question,
sure.
We also have a rather long discussion paper that goes into the total meat. So, I mean, if you really want to understand what's going on, including the background of how we got to where we're going, we've got a long discussion paper on the self-care framework that will totally educate you about what's going on. And actually, we would encourage all of you to read it. So, and it also has links to the source documents and the like. So we've tried to make it very easy for those that want a deep dive. And the nice thing about that too is then if, any MP or anyone else is saying, oh, well, what they're saying isn't true. Well, no. Here's our analysis and here's the link to the source documents that we're relying on. You tell us where we're wrong.
So I put both those links in the chat now, the one to draft your own MP or bureaucrat letters, and then also the link to that discussion paper if you do want to do that deep dive. And thank you for the question. All right, some more in this Q&A box here. Drew, you're asking a question about printing off sheets. I think that this question is about the Charter of Health Freedom petition, and you're asking, do they equal one vote per page? No, not exactly. So you can print off a single page where you're collecting petition signatures. And on that page, you can actually collect up to 25 signatures. We have enough space for that. They can be collected in English or French. We also actually have Chinese options. So folks can use whatever language is most accessible to them. And then you're mailing those filled in petition papers back to us so that we can count them in the total count. If you don't know 25 people who are interested in this, you only need 3 signatures minimum on a page, and we all know 3 people. So don't be thrown off by that number of 25. If you know 100 people, you're welcome to collect even more, but 3 is the minimum. So most of us are able to do that.
And if you're free to mind and go to other groups things, like take a copy with you and get signatures.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, take it to work, take it wherever you want to go that you think people would be interested in this. All right, Ingrid has another question here. She's wanting to know if products like mushrooms, chaga, spirulina, and herbs are falling under these new regulation changes.
Everything used for a therapeutic purpose is following under this. So, we can use all of those things for non-therapeutic purposes. I mean, that's the frustrating thing about natural health products is a lot of the ingredients we eat. So you can eat them and safety doesn't have to be proved and all of this. But as soon as you're going to recommend a therapeutic purpose, then it applies.
Okay, very good. Bonnie, your question is next. It's great to see you here. Her question is, are there any professional associations, naturopaths or others, which should, in all caps, be supporting and working with NHPPA, but which have not yet done so?
Well, I think every organization should be working with the NHPPA. So if you're involved in such an organization, I mean, take whatever steps you can to get them, in touch with us and working with us. Most of the professional organizations are now becoming really aware of what's going on with cost recovery and with, these new $5 million a day fines. But I run into practitioners that still don't know about the self-care framework and definitely don't know about the other aspects of the self-care framework. So we are behind the 8 ball on our educating. And part of that is and a big part of it is we don't yet have the resources. We're creating an infrastructure to be reaching practitioners of all types so that we can educate them, so that we can get them involved in these campaigns, actually, so that we can have, their waiting room turned into, have a corner where you've got the petitions there, where you've got materials to educate people, where, you can direct them to the NHPPA as a way of increasing the number of us that are taking action, because we need to get much larger. So I'd encourage you to continue. If you haven't been donating to us, please do. And if you are, please continue. But that's one of the things we've been frustrated with this year as we've been setting up our infrastructure is, we're aware that a lot of practitioners don't know, and we need to educate them. But, a lot of resources needed to do that.
All right, Judy sent in a question here. She's saying, I don't know if you will be able to answer this exactly how it's written, actually. What will happen to a naturopath that prescribes natural medication for thyroid? I don't know if that's specific enough for us to answer.
Well, but in a way we can. So what we have is we have somebody that is relying on some natural health products to treat a thyroid condition, which can be extremely serious. So, like desiccated pig thyroid, for example. So the natural remedies that our practitioners used are being targeted. Another aspect of the self-care framework is they say, well, once we have full harmonization for what we're going to call over-the-counter. So self-care means over-the-counter. So you don't see a healthcare practitioner. You have a headache and you go and get you're going to select aspirin or you're going to select white willow bark, and they want them regulated the same, even though the risk profile is completely different. But they've said quite clearly, well, we're not going to license products under this self-care framework, remember, over the counter. We're not going to license products that would be for a condition for which you would seek advice from any healthcare practitioner, be that a medical doctor, a naturopath, a homeopath, a nutrition, anyone, any healthcare practitioner. So for those licensing, which you can now go through the natural health product regulations, the only pathway left for you is the new drug approval regulations found in C.08.001 as the start of them in the drug regulations. Though you're never going to get through there without intellectual property rights. So it's one of our big worries is not only are we going to lose products, we're going to lose the practitioners that we rely on to help us because they won't have any products to help us. You should be very worried.
Thank you, Sean.
I would stock up, stock up and figure out how to store it and extend the shelf life.
All right,
that I give advice to everyone. It is time to start stocking up. It's not emergency, like the cost recovery is not coming in until 2025, but the door is closing.
That leads into the next question. We had an anonymous question sent in. It says, Bill C-47 was passed with the budget bill in June. Do I understand that the actual implementation date is spring of 2025, or was it law immediately and this notion of warning of implementation is not accurate?
So it got royal assent, I think, on June 22nd of 2023. And it's an extremely long bill. So different sections will come into force at different times. Even the sections that we're concerned with, 500 to 504, there's a couple little bits that aren't in force yet. But the $5 million day fines and the applications of most of the powers and penalties found in the therapeutic products part of the Food and Drug Act came into force immediately. And if my memory serves me correctly, the next day, Health Canada sent out letters to the industry contacts that they had announcing that this is now in force. So no, it came into force on June 22nd of 2023, except for two little parts that are really inconsequential for us right now.
All right, we've got 5 minutes left. I have a couple of questions left in the queue, but if anyone else is sitting on a question that they would like to pose, now is your last chance to type feverishly and get that into the Q&A box. Valerie asks, do the petitions need to be certified by a notary? No. So with respect to the Charter of Health Freedom paper petition, we encourage you to only sign that once. Ideally, everyone is only signing it once. However, when we submit that to the Clerk of Petitions at Parliament, they will go through a process to verify and certify the signatures. If there's any duplicates, they'll be removed. So you, as a citizen collecting signatures, do not need to do that. If you just ask the person that you're approaching, have you signed this before? If so, they don't need to sign it a second time. That's the most amount of work that you need to do on that piece. Another question here saying, why haven't I seen petitions and postcards at health food stores? I mentioned earlier, we're getting close to 1 million postcards sent out. Most of those have been to health food stores and some natural health clinics across the country. So if the health food stores nearby you are not showcasing our postcards, encourage them to share it with them. They're able to order from us. We have a page on our website. They can email us, request those postcards so that they can set those things out. And same thing with the petitions. Those petition print-offs are free, so you can print off a little stack if you want to, take it into the health food store. We love that there's a lot of citizens getting on board and doing some of that legwork as well. You have the connection with those health food stores, so they're going to listen to you.
Do you want to speak about the store page that's coming shortly
That's
also?
upcoming. Okay, so I suppose so. We are working very, very hard on some new sections on our website and a big refresh to put together specific pages on our website where stores and practitioners can get the information that's most relevant to them. Join a network that is specific to practitioners or specific to retailers, where we will then be sending them information that they can then use in store or in clinic, download and utilize. So we are working on that. As Sean said, we've been building out our infrastructure. So that is shortly upcoming. Hopefully we'll have something to share with you at our next campaign update call. And maybe even launched, and you would see it in our email newsletter before then. But in the meantime, and even after that launch, please do point those health food stores in our direction if they're not aware of the work that we're doing or of these issues in general. All right, a couple more questions and we will wrap up for the evening. So we've got a question from Deborah. Can we purchase from outside of Canada and ship to us, or will we be blocked altogether?
Oh, well, that's an interesting question. So in theory, you can import for personal use. But Health Canada takes the position, they have a policy paper on, personal use. So how they try to figure out whether it's personal use is this a 3-month supply? Surely to goodness, no one would ever order more than 3 months of something that they're taking for their health. So if it fits within that criteria, and the inspector, what happens is if they realize it's a natural health product, custom flags it and sends a request to Health Canada, should we let this in or should we not let it in? And sometimes there appears to be no rhyme or reason. Some things get through without any trouble, and some things are turned around. And what we have found over the years is that a lot of companies in the US, and especially when our NHP regulations came into force, and we're just not participating, because if a shipment comes back, Health Canada or Customs will often open the bottles and pierce the seal, which is just malicious. But even if they didn't, can you restock something that you've sent and had Customs opened? Because you really don't know, even if it looks okay. So it's quite costly. And we've had company after company after company that has just refused to do business into Canada anymore. And those that are still doing it, it can be hit and miss. But in theory, you can. So, but how long that will happen, and I've noticed it's been getting harder and harder and harder. But don't worry, because with Health Canada imposing this cost recovery, they're telling us this is for more enforcement, more inspectors, more opportunity to cause mischief for you, including your shipments from the States.
All right, the last question that I have here, and then we'll wrap up with a few more actions that you folks can take. Vanette is asking, you reference this official self-care framework as being a strong arm that has landed here from outside Canada, with countries like in Europe, including the UK, already having lost free access to natural health products. Can we really do this?
I'm not sure what she means by can we really do this? Because
I think she
obviously
means
we can.
we
It's just going to
really,
be a train wreck for us. Or you mean can we really stop it?
I think she means can we really stop this? Like, do we have a
Okay.
chance?
So is anyone on this call going to take the position that we are so powerless that we cannot stop an initiative that we actually know is going to lead to death and suffering? Like, is that where we're going to stop here? Or are we going to do whatever it takes? And I think this has to be the largest citizen rebellion in Canada's history. And they already know that the citizens of Canada don't want a single part of the self-care framework. Every MP knows, every party knows, every employee of Health Canada knows. They know. So we've let them know we don't want this to go ahead, and they're ignoring us, and they're trying to risk, which we all know they're just trying to find risk when they know that peanut butter is riskier than the entire industry. Why are we even talking risk? And if you want to talk risk, you better talk benefits, because we're taking these for health reasons, and some of us are managing serious conditions successfully on them that we couldn't manage on chemical pharmaceutical drugs. So really it's up to us, isn't it? Because here we are at the NHPPA, frustrated that, basically we operate on a shoestring budget. We think we need to triple or quadruple the number of people we have working for us, because this has to be the largest citizen movement in our history, because it's clearly not being dictated for our interests. I just shared my personal opinion. I think it's coming from outside of Canada, but let's say it's coming from inside Canada. Let's say we just have regulatory capture and a bureaucracy that's not actually trying to get good health outcomes. I don't care. It's been entrenched. I've been working on this issue since 1995, and it's just been a single momentum with, the end goal of having our products removed from us. And we either put up with that or we don't, but it's up to you. And we're thinking this is going to be a year or two long campaign. We actually need a monthly budget. So that's why we're asking people, like, commit $100 a month, like, let us budget and let's get this thing done. But it depends on your actions. And even, like I say, you sharing on social media, like, there's things you can do, but we've got to, we've really got to get the citizens involved in this.
So I want to say, Vanette, as well, to that question, can we really do this? We know by Health Canada's own numbers, 70% of Canadians are actively using natural health products to care for their health or the health of their families. Most other Canadians also believe they would like access to them, even if they aren't currently using them. Personally, I really feel this is an issue that Canadians can really unite on. For that reason, I do think that we have a chance to make this happen, to stop these things from occurring, to ensure that we're maintaining our access to these products. If 70% of us came together and said, no, we don't accept this, and did all of that work to push back, that would be a huge citizen rebellion. And we can do that in respectful and civil ways, but there's actions, as Sean said, that all of us can take, and have the confidence that this is 70% of people who are using these products. So most people in your networks will care about this issue. Have the confidence to bring it to the workplace, to bring it to your community centers, to bring it into your places of worship. Talk about this with folks around you, because you'll be really surprised how many people want to take this up as their issue as well. This matters to a lot of Canadians. All right, I think that brings us to the end of our evening. I'm going to put a few more links in the chat. One I've shared already, that's to subscribe to our email newsletter. Again, that's a great way to stay up to date on all of the latest that we're working on if you haven't done that already. I have the link there to donate. As Sean said, we need the funding to be able to continue doing the work that we're doing. So if you're able, please do donate. And the last link I put in there is to volunteer with us. So we do need some more volunteers as well. We're actively recruiting for a volunteer team. So if you're able to give some time and have some skills, please check out that link as well and come and volunteer with our team also. Any last thoughts that you want to share, Sean?
No, no. It was just, I thank everyone for participating, both in person and those that watch afterwards. Thank you.
I echo that as well. Thank you everyone for being here live and for all of you who watched on the replay. We will see you again next month with another update. Take care. Bye-bye.